What if the skills to de-escalate a hostage crisis could save your own life from the inside? In this episode, Terry Tucker reveals secrets from SWAT negotiations that unlocked his survival through 13 years of cancer. And they just might help you rewrite your toughest battles. Let's get started.
You'll more than likely be dead in 2 years. We have nothing to offer you other than surgery. There are no drugs, there are no protocols, there's nothing. And then I got mad. I've done everything right in my life. How can I possibly have this disease? All you have to do is crack the door a little bit, and you might save that individual's life. You don't have to be some big time negotiator or have any skills at all. Just listen to what the person's saying.
Hey, Terry, thank you for being here.
Barbie, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Me too. So you're an interesting person because we've never had a hostage negotiator on our show. So I can't even imagine the people that you have met along the way.
Yeah, it's been certainly interesting. Usually your next door neighbor is not a hostage negotiator, in any capacity and things like that. But so much of what I learned and so much of what we were taught as negotiators really is about how human beings interact with each other. And I mean, let's face it, if you're talking to me and your house is surrounded by the police, you're probably having the worst day of your life. So yeah, I learned a lot. It was a great experience. It was an opportunity to help people that were really in crisis. And so a lot of that can move over into our everyday lives, how we communicate with each other, how we interact with each other. So yeah, learned a lot from it.
I would imagine also you have to have some sort of like empathy for people because you do see them in the worst day of their life. I mean, if you're taking hostages, you're just, you're not doing well.
You're right. And a lot of it, yes, there were people who had taken hostages, but a lot of times there were just people that had barricaded themselves.
Yeah.
I barricaded myself in a room, I've got a gun and that kind of thing. But you made a great point, the whole empathy. How did we start out with this? It was, and there were many times we would get on scene and have absolutely no idea, why are we here at 3 o'clock in the morning? What's going on? What precipitated this?
Right.
And so we would use what was called tactical empathy. I think you can get rid of the word tactical and just talk about empathy. And that's, for example, Barbie, help me to understand what's going on today. Help me to understand where you're coming from. Help me to understand what precipitated this, whatever it ends up being. And the key word there is understand. I mean, if I was negotiating with a guy that just murdered 3 people, I wasn't going to be like, oh yeah, totally agree. Yeah, you should have done that. That was something you should have done. But that understanding leads to trust, and trust leads to a point where we can get that person out, hopefully safely.
So when they're training you, I'm assuming that they're teaching you how to talk to these people. But what are they saying that probably, would you say the majority of your people were just barricaded in their house, that you had less people who actually took hostages, or what
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I would imagine. Because we interview a lot of people on here, and there's a lot of people who have had people who have committed suicide in their family and or attempted it themselves, to get to the extreme where the police are called because you have a gun to your head. Sometimes I wonder if those people actually truly want to hurt themselves or if they want the attention. Like, what are you taught on that?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, the whole suicide thing. And it's what we were taught was basically, and I did this many times. If I thought somebody was going to hurt themselves or I thought somebody was going to kill themselves, we would just flat out ask them. It's like, Barbie, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Barbie, are you thinking of shooting yourself right now? And so many people think, oh, if I say that, I'm putting that idea into their mind. I'm putting that idea into their head. And that's exactly the opposite. It's not the case. And so many people, when they go back and kind of look at the relationship with the person, it's like, well, they were giving things away. They were talking about death. They were just totally acting opposite of what they normally do. So all the kind of cues were there that, oh, something's changed in this person's life. And people would say, yeah, I saw all that, but I didn't want to say anything to them because I was afraid I was going to put the idea into their mind. So anybody who's listening to us right now, if you're ever in that situation, ask them. You're not going to put it into their mind. There were several times where people were like, no, you're an idiot. Why would you even think that? They would kind of fire back on you. And then there were other times where, yes, but
Mm,
somebody sees me. Because so many people that want to commit suicide just, you could be in a room with, 10,000 people, but nobody sees me. I'm alone. I'm here. So see that person. And then people get excited, like, well, if they say yes, then what do I do?
right.
Just listen. Just let them talk. Let them talk it through. Let them talk it out. That's all they're doing. All you have to do is crack the door a little bit, and you might save that individual's life. You don't have to be some big time negotiator or have any skills at all. Just listen to what the person's saying.
Not powerful because most people, like you said, they just want to be heard.
Yeah.
They want to know that somebody cares.
Yeah, they do. And that's just it. They feel like, I'm in this big company or I'm in this big school and I'm around all these people, but nobody sees me. Nobody
Mm,
understands me. Nobody gets where I'm coming from. And just by you doing that, and I mean, and it's true. Think about it in your own life. I
mhm,
mean, I have gotten real good at, I can just kind of look at your face and be like, You're not having a good day." And so
mhm,
what do you do? I usually call that out. Be like, "Hey, Barbie, you look like you're having a tough day today."
mhm.
And yeah, I mean, not that you're thinking of committing suicide or anything like that,
Right,
but you're just having a tough day. By
right,
calling that out, again, oh yeah, I am, Terry. Things are not
mhm,
going well, and whatever you want to tell me, but we don't like to do that. It's like, don't mess with Barbie. Let Barbie do things.
right,
And no, call that out. Say that to that person. You just don't look like you're having a good day. Because if you're having a great day, you're gonna be, no, Terry, things are great. Everything's
right.
wonderful. But if you are having that tough day, it's another human being connecting with
Mhm,
you. I'll tell you a quick story. There's a psychology professor at the University of Chicago who does this particular experiment with his students. The idea is you go out, you get on a bus, and in 3 questions, you try to go deep with somebody. So you get
mhm,
on a bus, you sit down next to somebody, hey, how you doing? "Oh, I'm fine. How are you?" Question one. And I'm just making this up. Question
right.
two, what do you do for a living? "Oh, I'm a doctor." Question three, have you always wanted to be a doctor? Now,
Mhm,
it doesn't matter what they tell you. They could say, no, I grew up on a farm and I wanted to be a veterinarian or a vet tech or something like that, but X, Y, and Z happened. Or my mother died of breast cancer when she was 40 and she was a doctor, and I'm honoring her memory by going into medicine and becoming a doctor. Whatever they tell you, now they're telling you their why, their mission, their purpose in life. And we don't do that with people. We don't, social media lets us stay on the surface. Everything's great, everything's wonderful, things are fine.
right.
And we miss all the stuff that's going on below the surface. And so, by doing that, by just connecting with another human being, by asking those questions, you look like you're having a tough day. Wow,
Yeah.
somebody sees me.
And I think like being real on the other side, right? So if somebody asks you how your day's going and you're having a tough day and say, well, I'm fine, da 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 da, like actually being real. Sometimes it makes people uncomfortable. I am totally the person who will tell you like how my day's actually going. Trader Joe guys, I've said this before, will say like, how's your day? And I'm like, it's really shitty. How's your day? You know?
And see,
And
I'm just the opposite of you. I mean, I could be dying. How's your day? Oh, it's going great. I mean, I'm just the opposite. I don't air my dirty laundry, so to speak. And that was, when I started doing podcasts and stuff like that, that was one of the hardest things I had to overcome. Because if you want people to listen to what you say, you have to be honest. You have to be vulnerable. You have to say, yeah, I did this and it wasn't a good thing. I shouldn't have done it. You have to put it out there. And I am one of these people that holds things close to the vest. And so
yeah.
that was something I had to learn when I
I had
started.
to learn it too. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
was so used to in corporate just going, fine, perfect, how can I help you? Blah, 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 blah. And then I realized that if I was just honest about what was going on, then people would open up. And so, Trader Joe's guy might go, yeah, my day's pretty, hard too. I get off in an hour and I can't wait to get off. Or, I just started and it's going to be a long day. But then it's not the same conversation as every time they grab somebody's groceries and they're like, oh, fine, how are you? Fine, how are you? Da da da, your total is blah, blah, blah. Like it gives everybody a different, it gives us some variation to our day instead of just being robotic.
It does. And I always, you go to a party or you go somewhere out there and you meet somebody for the first time and what do you do for a living? What do you do on vacation? What books are and that's all fine and good, but I find a great question to ask people is what do you love about what you do?
Mm.
because it's so open-ended, and it goes to the heart of, I could tell you about my job, but I really want to talk to you about how I do this rescue work with animals at the shelter and stuff like that. And that's really what's on my heart. That's really something I enjoy, or whatever, working with the homeless or orphans or whatever it ends up being. Instead of, kind of the, oh, what do you do for a living? It's,
Yeah.
oh, I'm a doctor. Work for the bank, whatever. What do you love about what you do? It's a simple question that kind of gets you deep with another human being.
And maybe some people don't even think about that because they're so busy today, surviving all the time. And so they don't even think about what do I love what I do, or maybe I'm not doing anything that I love. Maybe that's a good thing to think about.
But exactly. And a lot of people, I answered a question on LinkedIn yesterday about, if you're underappreciated, if your manager or your company isn't, you don't feel like you're contributing whatsoever, what do you do? And my response was, well, that sounds more like a cultural issue within the organization.
Yeah.
It's going to be awful hard for you as an individual to change that culture if that's the way that culture is. So maybe it's time, you got to a point where you've outgrown that company. Maybe it's time, you haven't lost your job, you still have a job, but maybe it's time to start looking for something else where you can grow, where you can contribute to that
Mhm.
company. Because all the surveys when I was in the private sector, all the surveys I ever saw from employees, money and benefits usually fell somewhere around 6 or 7 on the list of things that were priorities. What was high was, do you see me as a person? How do I contribute? What does my job do to improve the values or the goals of the organization? You want to feel you're valued for what
Right.
you're contributing. Yes, you want to be paid and you want to have benefits, but if you're not valued and you're not contributing, you're not going to do good work, and it's not a place you probably want to stay.
Right. When you were doing hostage negotiation, was people's loss of a job or financial insecurity like a higher percentage rate of why people were in that state?
No, it's usually a family or a boyfriend, girlfriend, or something like that. Many times, alcohol and drugs were involved.
Mm.
A lot of these things happened at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, kind of thing. So people had been drinking, and the way we used to do this, and there've been some movies about negotiating. Samuel L. Jackson did a movie back in the
Yeah.
1990s called The Negotiator, and it made him look like Superman. Like he was a one-man show. And people always ask me, is that the way it is? It's like, absolutely not. That's the way. Yes, there's a primary. There's somebody talking to the individual who's in crisis. But sitting right next to you is another negotiator listening to everything that's being said. And then we have 3 or 4 or 5 people, what I used to call working in the crowd. What
Mm.
happened? How did we get to this point? Stuff like that. And so you might get a note from the person sitting next to you that said, don't talk about his mother.
Mm.
Because the people in the crowd found out he had a huge, he and his mom and his whole, brothers were drinking all night. Now it's 3 o'clock in the morning. He has a huge fight with his mother, grabs a gun, barricades himself in the bedroom. Well, that's good information to know.
Mm.
I want to talk to my mother. No, and we rarely let people talk to family members or friends or something like that because we didn't know the dynamics and we didn't know how good the relationship was. And a
Right.
lot of times people would use that as, yeah, okay, we'll let you talk to your mother. It's like, Mom, you are a terrible mom. Boom. And they shoot
Oh,
themselves,
yeah.
right in front of their mother because they want to make mom feel bad. So you're not going to be talking to anybody other than me. So,
Wow. When I was younger, I worked in the emergency room and we had what we called frequent flyers.
Mhm.
Were there frequent flyers in your world?
Yes, but in kind of a different way. And I'll say this about the frequent flyers. We never lied to people.
Yeah.
So, somebody would say, okay, Terry, I'll put the gun down and I'll come out, but you've got to promise me I'm not going to go to jail.
Right.
We would have to say, come on, Barbie, we've been talking for 5 hours. I've been honest with you through this whole thing. Do you really want me to start lying to you?
Mm.
Or just flat out say, Barbie, when you come out, you're going to have to go to jail. And then we would try to deflect the conversation to something more palatable. And
Right.
the reason we didn't lie, and it's not an altruistic reason, it was basically because there was a good chance, and this happened a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we would be right back negotiating with that same person again. Because, like I said, maybe it was their mother that set them off. Well, mom's still around, mom's
Yeah,
still pushing their buttons, and 2 years from now, we're right back negotiating. And if they ever felt that I lied to them, then my credibility is gone. I mean, think of any good relationship you have,
right.
whether it's with your parents, your spouse, your kids, or whatever. If it's not based on trust,
Yeah,
it's not a good relationship. So
yeah,
if the person ever felt we lied to them, then we were going to have to bring in an entirely new negotiator and start that negotiation from ground zero. Whereas if I had negotiated with you before and you felt I was honest with you, we can start a little bit farther down the tracks than
yeah.
if we, hey, I don't know what's going on. We're going to have to start at ground zero.
You built the trust.
Yes.
Yeah. So you went through a hard time in your life where you had a very big change to your physical self, which I'll let you share. And then I would like to know when you do kind of share that story with us, how your mental state was and if you felt like you ever went down that dark road.
So I'll answer the yes, I did go down that dark road, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. So yeah, 2012, I had a school security consulting business, and I was coaching girls high school basketball, and I had a callus break open on the bottom of my left foot, right below my third toe, and initially didn't think much of it because as a coach, you're on your feet a lot. But after a few weeks of it not healing, I made an appointment and went to see a podiatrist, a foot doctor friend of mine, and he took an X-ray and he said, "Terry, I think you got a cyst in there, and I can cut it out." And he did. And he showed it to me, just a little gelatin sac with some white fat in it. No dark spots, no blood, nothing that gave anyone concern. But fortunately or unfortunately, he sent it off to pathology to have it looked at. And then 2 weeks later, I get the call from him. And as I mentioned, he's a friend. And Barbie, the more he's trying to tell me what's going on, the more frightened I am becoming
Mm,
because he's having a hard time just kind of blurting it out.
right.
And then finally just says, Terry, here's the deal. I've been a doctor for 25 years and I have never seen the form of cancer that you have. You have an incredibly rare form of melanoma. And most people think of melanoma as too much exposure to the sun, affects the
Mhm.
melon, the pigment in our skin. Mine has nothing to do with sun exposure. It's a rare form that appears on the bottom of the feet or the palms of the hands. And because my cancer was so uncommon, he recommended I go to MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston and be treated. And I did. And Barbie, that's when they told me, this was 2012, they said, you'll more than likely be dead in 2 years. We have
Mm,
nothing to offer you other than surgery. There are no drugs, there are no protocols, there's nothing. I thought, well, you gave me a death sentence.
right.
Maybe I can try to turn that death sentence into a life sentence. So I know I went through all the stages that we would associate with grief. I mean,
Mm.
first it was um,
Denial.
denial. I can't possibly have cancer. My dad died of cancer when he was 54. I've done everything right in my life. Eat right, exercise, don't do, drugs, alcohol, smoking, everything right. And then I got mad. I've done everything right in my life. How can I possibly have this disease? And then our daughter was in high school at the time. And so there was sort of I guess, a bargaining with God,
Mhm.
kind of, hey, God, let me live long enough to see her graduate from high school at least. Let me be around as a dad to do that. And then I got down. I got depressed. I felt sorry for myself. But I came out the other end and was like, this sucks, but I'm going to have to embrace the suck. I
Mm,
do not like the cards that I've been dealt, but I'm going to have to play these cards to the best of my ability. And it's been over 13 years now. I've had my foot amputated, I've had my leg amputated. I've got more tumors in the stump that was left over. I'm going to have surgery in a couple of weeks for that. So it's just been a constant saga. But I'll say this, I believe this is bigger than me. That
mm,
this isn't, yes, I should have died several times along this journey, but I didn't, which said to me, this isn't about me. This is something bigger. I have a very strong faith in God. I don't put that on anybody, but I believe that God is using me to show people his love, his mercy, his grace, his peace, his healing. And as
mm.
far as I'm concerned, that helps me to get through a lot of these difficult times.
And for somebody, well, one, I love what you just said. And I love that people who take their hardships and turn them into power and turn them into something that they can help the world with. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Um, Now I don't even remember where I was going to go. Oh, so you said that you're still dealing with this, and is death still on the table? Is this something that they said like this is something that could still potentially cause death?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, in 2020, in the middle of the COVID pandemic, I found out that my entire lower leg was full of cancer, and I had tumors in my lungs. Still have tumors in my lungs. They ended up amputating my leg above the knee, and I've been on a clinical trial drug for the last 4.5 years that does nothing to the cancer. But the way cancer proliferates in the body is that it secretes an enzyme, a protein that hides it from your own immune system. And what this drug does is go in and wipe out that protein or enzyme so that my own immune system can say, hey, just like if you had a cold or a flu virus, this doesn't belong here. We need to go attack that. And for 4.5 years, that trial drug kept my tumors stable. And then in May, the drug company decided it wasn't profitable enough, and so they discontinued it. And almost immediately, I get two more tumors in my stump. And so I'm going to have those removed, but I'm also going to go into a new protocol where they will send my tumors to a lab, grow my T cells. T cells are a kind of a white blood cell that deal with infection and disease and things like that. Grow billions of my T cells from my cancerous tumor, put me in the hospital for 2 days, wipe out my immune system with strong dose chemotherapy, and then give me back these 7 to 9 billion T cells with the hope that they will then go into my body and eradicate whatever cancer's there.
Do you remember that guy who went in and shot some executive from a health insurance company or something like
Yeah,
that?
United Healthcare shot the
Yeah.
CEO. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
When you say like your story of this treatment was actually working, but they didn't continue it because there wasn't enough profit in it. I mean, that, not to say that it's okay to go shoot somebody, but I think that guy's daughter had died because of something with insurance. But I mean, you can kind of understand people's upset and mental, their head where their head goes when there's something that is actually helping you, but because not enough money is made on it, they don't continue it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I found this out by having a routine visit with my doctor and her saying I got this letter from the manufacturer. It was still a clinical trial. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, the trial had ended 2.5 years late, 2.5 years earlier, and the company was kind enough to say, we'll continue to make it since it's helping
Mhm.
you, but it was not an FDA approved drug. It wasn't a standard of care that was allowed to be used for everybody because the FDA hadn't proved its efficacy yet. I mean, did it work? It worked for me,
Right.
but did it, everybody else that was on the trial at the University of Colorado where I was died. I
Oh,
was the
really?
last,
So it worked for you, but not most people.
but not anybody else. And
That's
so
interesting.
yeah, I mean, and you're like, why did it work for me, but
Yeah.
not for them? And a lot of it, my doctor thinks, when I was first diagnosed, they put me on a weekly injection of a drug called interferon. That's all I had. It was not going to be a cure. It was kind of kicking the can down the road therapy, and it made me terribly sick. I had terrible reactions to it. But you fast forward, and my doctor feels, well, your body knew how to take this clinical trial drug based on your previous drug therapy with the interferon and use it. Whereas the other people, they didn't have interferon. They kind of, I'll never forget this. I was in room 4. There was another guy in room 5 who was getting the same drug, same dose, same time. I was shaking violently, throwing up, had a fever, sweating. He was sound asleep in the next room.
Oh, interesting.
So, and you're like, oh, that's terrible. It is terrible, but you understand that when your body reacts like that, it's using the drug the way it's supposed to. It's
Right.
kind of revving up your immune system versus him, he was sound asleep. So it
Right. It
probably
wasn't
wasn't
doing
revving up his immune system.
My mind goes down so many different routes that we don't need to go down. But I'm like, well, if interferon works with it, then why wouldn't they give that as a treatment first and then give yours? But that's a whole different route. I'm not a scientist and a pharmaceutical,
Oh, they don't even use interferon anymore. It is a horrible,
Mm,
nasty, debilitating. I mean, I lost 50 pounds during the interferon. I used to joke I was so skinny I could go hang gliding on a Dorito. I mean, I lost the ability to taste food. I was
mm.
constantly nauseous, vomiting, diarrhea. I mean, it's
It's terrible.
Barbie, there was one point. I mean, I was so sick of being sick, I literally prayed to die. It's like, okay,
Mm.
God, you know what? Just take me out of this. Let my family get on with their lives. This is not living. this is just not dying.
From your experience in the police department and your experience with your cancer and then your life of living um, such a healthy lifestyle, what all of that stuff have you taken and what have you learned?
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot about cancer, read a lot about inflammation and things like that, and trying to, and I mean, I could give you 4 hours on all the goofy things that I take and that I eat, but I do things. I just started fasting, and I did a 73-hour fast, and my oncologist was like, "You did?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "What do you think about that?" She said, "There's some research that says fasting is good. It breaks down, the bad cells. It lets your body cleanse, get rid of the bad cells, kind of regroup, make better cells and things like that." And honestly, when I did it, I wasn't sure I could do it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it for 24 hours. Let's see how it goes. And then I was like, okay, I can do it. Let's do it for another 24 hours. It was 48. And then finally I got to 72 and was like, look, I'm starving. I got to eat, something. But I was breathing better. I I have my one leg tends to swell sometimes because I'm not as active as I used to be. The swelling went away. I mean, there were a lot of things that I noticed specifically that I can only attribute to the fact that I didn't eat food for 3 days. I just drank water and I didn't eat anything, had nothing. And, my wife used to, it's like, hey, I'm having dinner. You want to come out and sit with me? Really? Baked potatoes, steak, broccoli?
Yeah, you're
You're
like,
killing me
no.
here.
You're like, you don't make that normally. Why would you make it when I'm fasting,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like some of the triggers in their mind. So on a soul level, what have you learned in your journey?
Oh, so much. And again, this is bigger than me.
Hmm.
I mean, I should have died. I mean, the interferon at the end put me in the intensive care unit with a body temperature of 108 degrees, which is usually not compatible with being alive. You're not
Right.
alive at that. I survived that. I survived the blood clot in my lung and fluid around the sac of my heart. I survived the COVID pandemic, having my leg amputated, being alone in the pre-op room, not allowing to have anybody with me, being told I'd be in the hospital for 12 to 14 days to learn how to function without a leg, and being sent home after 48 hours.
Mm.
Like, you know, I've learned that you're so much more than you think you can be. And I'll tell you a story. It's a true story. It happened back in the 1950s at Johns Hopkins University here in the United States. And I'm going to tell a rat story, so hang with me here. There was a professor there by the name of Richter who was doing an experiment with rats, and he wanted to see how long the average rat could tread water. And the average rat treaded water for about 15 minutes before the rat sank and drowned. He said, okay, 15 minutes and we'll see. So he took another group of rats, put it in the same tank of water that was over their head, and he watched the rats. And just as they were starting to struggle and they might drown, he reached in, grabbed them, pulled them out, dried them off, and let them rest for a while. And then he took those exact same rats, put them back in that exact same tank of water. And the second time around, on average, those rats treaded water for 60 hours.
Oh, wow.
I
Just
know.
because
Now
they were
think
taken
about
out
that.
one time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first time, 15 minutes. I mean,
Right.
it's not like, you're going to flunk a test or your marriage is going to go under or, you're going to lose your business. You're going to die. And
Yeah.
the second time around, 60 hours, which taught me a couple things. Number one, the importance of hope in our lives, that
Yeah.
if we believe we're doing the right thing, maybe not today, maybe not this month, maybe not even this year, but there's a good chance if you can just keep doing what you're doing that you'll get to where you want to be. Nothing's 100%, but there's a good chance. And the second thing it taught me was just how much more our physical bodies can handle. Now, don't get me wrong, I think we all have a breaking point, but I
Sure.
think that breaking point is so much further down the road. We quit, we give up, we give in because our brains tell us, hey, this hurts, it's uncomfortable, stop it. And we do. You don't have to stop it. Your brain is not your best friend. It doesn't have your best interest in mind. It's just trying to keep you alive. So when those hard things happen, push through those hard things. And it's amazing how much more resilient you will become.
And I love that because it can be used for anything.
Absolutely.
Like as you're talking, I'm thinking about like it sounds silly, but my career, right? So I gave
Mhm.
up my high money making career and I went into this world of transformation and helping people and being on a journey and all these different things. There's not money in it, like my banking career, right? Or in fact, right now there's not much money in it at all. But I know at the end of the day, I'm doing good work. And I know at the end of the day, at some point, it will at least provide enough money to provide for my family. But there are days when it's just like, this is too much. Like, I need to go get a job, you know?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've been doing, I've been writing books. I've been, talking and stuff. I don't make any money doing this,
Hmm.
but it's what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
It's look, I need you to go do this for me,
Yeah.
and I'm calling you to do it. And I'll get you to where you need to be. Like I said, when I first started podcasting, I mean, literally, I'd started a speaking business and COVID hit and
Mm.
everything shut down. And a friend of mine reached out. He said, Terry, would you like to be a guest on my podcast? And Barbie, this is the honest to God truth. I said, sure. What's a podcast? I had no idea what a podcast was. And he told me, and I said, okay, I'll try it. I was terrible. I provided no value to the audience. I had post-it notes all around the camera. He'd ask me a question, and I'd kind of lean in. I'd read one of the post-it notes. Provided no value at all. But then I thought, well, I kind of like this. I mean, the first time I drove a car, I wasn't any good at it. The
Right.
first time I cooked a meal, I burned the water. You can't burn the water. Yeah, it just goes to see. But anyway,
I burned some pots.
I mean, so you look at, when you first started so many things in your life, you weren't any good at it.
Mhm.
But then you practice, you listen to the podcast you're on. And how many times do you say hum and those filler words? Do you have good stories? Because people learn, we learn through stories. If I told you five things, you might remember one or two of them. But if I told you five things and gave you a story with each of them, there's a much better chance you would remember that. So it was a matter of how do I get better? And now almost 750 podcasts later, and there was never a number. I never started out to say I want to do 500 podcasts. It was,
Right.
does this make sense? Can I make a difference in somebody's life by telling my story with the understanding I don't have all the answers,
Right.
but I've learned some things and I'd like to offer them to people. So I hear you. Yeah, there's no money in this, but you're touching people in a way that so many other people aren't.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were talking about, but you still have to, your mind says you're not gonna, this doesn't make sense. You need to make money. It costs money to live in this world. You're not doing like you need to go do this. Give up on it, give up on it, give up on it, give up on it. And you have to push through. And this is whether it's with work, it's whether it's with your health, whether it's with your family, whatever it is, you have to push through and know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel at some point. Some point your I feel like you talked about resilience. I feel like your level of tolerance gets higher too,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
right?
I mean, I was the biggest baby in the world. I mean, when I was young and had to go to the pediatrician for a vaccine or something, and this was before key fobs and all that stuff, I would wait till my mother got out of the car and I'd lock all the doors from the inside. So she had to go get the pediatrician and his nurse, and it was kind of playing a game of who can unlock the door quickly enough to get Terry out of the car. I was scared to death of
Hmm.
needles and things like that. And I think now it's instead of running from pain, instead of getting away from pain, I've learned to take that pain, to throw it inside, to burn it as fuel, to use it as energy to make myself more resilient. Now, don't get me wrong, I have those bad days. I get down, I feel depressed, I cry, I do all that stuff, but I just don't let myself stay there.
Yeah, and that's the key, right? Yeah. So, as we wrap up, you've given us a ridiculous amount of wisdom. I just absolutely think you're amazing.
Thank you.
Is there just one more tool or thought that you'd like to share?
Sure, I'll give you this quote. I love to read. It's pretty much all I do when I'm not doing work related stuff. This is a quote from a book called Farewell to Arms. It's by Ernest Hemingway, one of our probably most prolific authors, and it's a novel, but it's a semi-autobiographical account of his time as an ambulance driver with the Italian army during World War I. And the line in the book is this: "Life breaks everyone.
Mm.
And afterward, many are stronger at the broken places."
Mhm.
So just like if you were to break your arm, and you'd go to the hospital, a doctor would set that arm, put it in a cast, it would heal. Where that break was, that bone would be stronger. That's just like our lives. When you go through something difficult in your life and you don't let it defeat you and you keep moving forward, even if it's just a little bit, you're going to come out the other end stronger than when you began. So take the adversity you have in your life and turn it around. Use it for your benefit. Don't run from it. Use it to make you stronger.
Fantastic. Where can people find you if they, and I'm sure a lot of people will find wisdom in what you've taught us. Where can they find you?
Sure. So I have a website slash blog called Motivational Check. So you can reach out to me at motivationalcheck.com.
Hmm. Beautiful. And they'll find on there a blog and your books.
My blog, my books, my social media links, all kinds of things. You can leave me a message. I love hearing from people. So please feel free to reach out.
Love it. So we'll put that information in the description, and we really appreciate you taking time and sharing your story with us and all of the really cool things about the hostage negotiation that we wouldn't normally hear.
Well, thanks for having me on, Barbie. I really enjoyed talking with you.
We appreciate you. Thank you. If this story spoke to you, let's keep the healing going. Visit barbiemoreno.com for my online course, Awakening Your Worth and Healing Energy sessions, one-on-one coaching, and your free healing guide. Your next step is waiting.